non-heraldic styles. My name is Bruce Draconarius.
He's been doing this forever.
Well, it feels like that sometimes, yes. But no, I've only been doing this since the early 80s, so there we are. This class is going to be a brief overview, nothing more than an overview, I'm afraid, of the styles that are found in period heraldry as they varied from parts of Europe. The hopeful goal of this is that when you are consulting with a client and you get one of those rare clients and says, I want to have fill in the blank arms, you'll be able to say, okay, here you go, and you actually give them a design that actually has a feel for the for the locale that they want. All right. Now, many of the examples I'm going to be showing you are you're going to have to deal with SCA style rules and SCA conflict rules, but I'm going to ignore those for the moment. All right. If they come up, then we'll deal with them then. But for now, I'm just showing you what the styles were in various parts of Europe during our period. The warning about that, of course, is the story I like to tell about the university lecturer at some college 500 years in the future, who was asked to teach a series of seminars on what was country music of the 20th century.
Oh.
Yeah, the problem with that is that every time you try to come up with a definition of country music, you'll find a song that everyone agrees is country music that doesn't fit the definition, and then if you change the definition, that just happens again in an entire concatenation of it. The best you can do is say, okay, country music in the 20th century was characterized by certain things, and if you find a piece of music that has all these things, chances are it's country music. Yeah, that's essentially what we're going to be doing here. So. Sorry about that. All right. And you should also be aware that what we are going to look at is design. During this class, we're going to be talking about design. We are not going to be talking about other things because they don't apply here. We will talk a little bit about charges, although, quite frankly, the choice of charges is not nearly as strong a regional indicator as many of our submitters would like to think. I'm Scottish. I've got to have a thistle. No, you don't. Do you know how many period coats in Scotland had thistles?
0.
0. Very good. Well done. 5 points to Gryffindor. Anyway.
On the other hand, if they wanted to have Coop's boar's heads,
that would be awesome sauce. Awesome. Yeah. And while we're on the subject of consulting with your clients, let me just put this little rule into your head that is just about applicable anywhere. Plain field, 1 charge of a contrasting tincture, is good regional style for anywhere and any time in the society's purview.
Except maybe Hungary.
Even there, we find examples.
Even
the worst excesses of Tudor England. You know, Philip Sidney had Ora Fion Azure. All right.
Nice.
So. Single tincture field, single tincture of charge in a contrasting tincture, 1 charge, that's good anywhere.
Yes.
All right? And 3 charges, identical charges, are almost as good.
your notes.
All right? So, now that you've memorized that, you don't have to take the rest of the class. You can go home now. All right. Unlike the last class, this is not PowerPoint, this is a slide presentation, so you're going to actually have to, there won't be any words on the screen. You have to pay attention to what I say. All right. All right, where am I? Okay. The reason I'm concentrating on design and to a certain extent the choice of charges is because drawing style can indicate time and place just as strongly as anything else, and that unfortunately is outside the scope of this particular class.
That's
This is just
class.
that's a different class, a much more complicated class. This is just an overview. But let me give you an example of what I mean. This is the earliest example of an oak tree that I have been able to find in period arms. This is from the Daring Roll, circa 1280. And you know it's an oak tree because it belongs to Roland de Oakstead. All right?
Sort of see that they're
You can sort of kind of see that's an oak tree.
You
All
can
right?
sort of see, yeah, they're sort of
Kind of.
and they sort of look like acorns.
100 years later in the Zurich Roll, there's another oak tree, you know? And let's keep going. Here's from the armorial of Gilles de Bouvier, next century. Another oak tree. Now we're in the 1400s.
That's an oak
Was
tree.
it
Here we-
15 arms?
Yep.
Do you know it?
Yep. 1500s. Another oak tree. Now we're getting into Italian heraldry, and you know, it's still recognizably an oak tree, but it's starting to be a little bit stylized now. They're weaving the branches in a
Yeah, but
in a
that's also
fancy
not
pattern.
ours.
Yeah, it's also Italian, and they did funky stuff. But now they come fast and thick. That one's 1550. This is Dabara, circa 1580. The foliage is much thicker. You can still see some acorns and some oak leaves, but you know,
can actually tell they're oak leaves.
yeah, because he's done some of them, but not all of them. Here we have from the Dunvegan armorial, about the same time period. The foliage is lost. We still have some acorns, but you know, the foliage is still at the arms of wood. And finally, by Siebmacher's time in Eichhammer, which again, canting arms for an oak tree, we see the familiar cotton ball cut puff on a stick that we all learned how to draw in grade school. All right, those are all oak trees. In terms of conflict, they all conflict, even though they're radically different. All right, but so time and place is determined by drawing style, just as much as the design layout or the charges you select. I mean, let's take, for example, eagles. All of these eagles are from the same time period. They're all from the 16th century. This one's from Germany, all right? Albrecht Dürer, we know he's pretty good. This one's from France. Here, let's go back to Dürer for a second. Wingtip displayed, tips down.
Very typical German.
All right, very typical German. French, displayed up. Let's not even talk about Portugal. Displayed wings up and have a head of, you know, all the same eagles. This is the Rey de Romanos, this is the king of the Romans, i.e. the German emperor. Right? So all the same charge, all the same arms, drawn three radically different ways. Just by drawing an eagle in one of those ways, you get a regional style. And we're not even going to talk about the difference between the way the French drew their fleurs de lis and the way the Italians did. All right?
And we don't place in the difference.
We don't place them the difference. They're both fleurs de lis.
Yep.
So drawing style is important, but we're not going to cover it beyond what I just did. What we're going to look at is layout. What we're going to look at is choice of charges. What we're going to do a certain degree of tincture choices. And we're going to start with the country that probably exemplifies regional style in Europe more than any other, Poland. All right. These are the arms of Poland. It's an eagle. All right, you know. And Poland had its share of, you know, what we call normal charges. They had eagles, they had griffins, they had spears, they had, you know, women riding bears. They had they had a whole bunch of stuff. But what it's mostly known for are what I like to call runic charges. All right. Now these are charges that, you know, some authors claim that this comes from an earlier system of signs called tanga. All right. There's some dispute about that. The jury's not in yet, but it is certain that by like 1370, which is when this was taken, it had evolved into its stylized form, which it has kept ever since.
Hansa.
Now, yes, who is it?
Back door, back door.
No, I want to shame her. You know what happens when you arrive too much late? Yes.
Wave to the crowd.
That's
Making
right.
an entrance.
All right.
Back door is actually unlocked.
See, lecture halls have their entrances in the back. Classrooms have their entrances in the front.
There's a reason for this.
It's labeled on this side.
Well, there's that too.
Yes.
All right, so anyway.
Laurel pointed me first door on the left. It's his fault.
All right, we will certainly blame him. All right. So anyway, where was I? Oh yes, all right, so we were talking about Polish earlier, and its cipher charges, its rune charges like this. Now, Poland was very strange. In some ways, Poland was very strange. You know how how we all decry those, you know, heraldry shops that are online and say get the coat of arms of Miller, and we know there's no such damn thing.
Except in Poland.
Except in Poland. Yes, one coat of arms was used by an entire family or by, you know, several families all, you know, all working and playing together, and they clans essentially, a clan system. They all use the same coat of arms, undifferenced. The only time we might learn about them in Western Europe is if one person in those families got important enough to be included in a roll of arms, which is why we see them all here. The coats of arms themselves are called heralds. I think I'm pronouncing that right. All right, and they had no blazon. You just said, okay, this is herb list. This is Herb Stragonski, or whatever they are. Yeah, and that was the name of it. That was all the blazon it had. So when trying to translate that into Western Europe, Western European heralds had to find some way to blazon these puppies. And yeah.
On your handout, I recognize the first three.
Mhm.
We've registered them, I believe. What's the last one?
The last one,
Uh-huh.
I believe it's called a. I'm not sure how it's blazoned, but I believe it's blazoned as essentially a bend bowed counter and bow.
Okay.
But I'll get to it. All right.
But I recognize the other three.
Well, I'm glad. All right. So anyway, so we would essentially blazon this, or Western heralds would blazon this as an arrowhead conjoined to a demi-annulet, or an arrowhead conjoined to a horseshoe. They'd break it down into parts and blazon it that way. And the rule in the SCA is if you can do the same, you can have it. All right. At least that's been the established rule. We've done a handful of Polish armory like this, but they've all been blazonable when broken down in parts. Now, to facilitate that, we've actually given names to some of the things. The arrowhead alone is called a rogacina. Right? Just the arrowhead alone is called a rogacina. That keeps us from confusing it with ordinary arrowheads, etc. Let's see if I've got some more examples. Okay. This first one is from 1370. This is from the Grand Armorial of the Order of the Golden Fleece, and essentially the same arms, and essentially the same arms again. This time attributed to Sednicki. but essentially, two different people bearing the same coat of arms in different time periods because they were all part of the same clan. All right, so this would be like we would blazon something like this as a rogacina, fourche, and singly crossed, or something like that. You could have a rogacina that's doubly crossed. You have a rogacina conjoined to, as I say, a demi-annulet or to a horseshoe. All right. There's another chart that looks like the letter W. We've been blazoning that as a dance couped. It might be worth our while to start using the Polish word for it, which is lekawica. But I'm not in charge.
That can be fixed.
He's
All
been
right.
in charge.
So here's an example of a rogacina double crossed. That's what you call it. Don't give me grief. I've been given grief by experts. Don't you try. Anyway, here's the lekawica. Again, this is from the Armorial of the Order of the Golden Fleece, 1400s. And this one, I guess we blazon that as a cross couped conjoined to a label couped or something like that. Yeah. But it's blazonable. So if you can find it, you can have it. Now, in terms of coloration, you may have noticed something that was in common of all of these. They were all on red fields and they all had white charges. Something like half of all Polish coats of arms had red fields, plain red. Of the remainder, 1/3 of all Polish coats of arms had blue fields, plain blue. So that's like, 5/6 of all Polish armories are going to have either a plain red field or a plain blue field. And 90% of them had a white charge. The charge was argent. Right? So just by choosing those colors, you're getting even if you didn't use something runic like this, just by choosing those colors, you're giving it a Polish flavor, if you will. All right? So, and then we have Gottschalkowsker. I don't know what the hell that is, but I probably blazon it as a bend, couped, embowed, counter embowed, conjoined with a ensign with a cross. I don't know. You pays your money, you takes your chances.
And it may also depend on how smooth the College of Arms is about trying to make blazons contort.
That's true. You will also notice that in all these cases, there wasn't anything else on the. It wasn't between two horses' heads or something like that. All right. In the vast majority of the runic charges or the cipher charges, that's all there was. We do have a couple of examples of borders being added, but that was a rarity. All right. So from one end of Europe, let's go to the other end of Europe, Spain and Portugal, the Iberian Peninsula. Spanish arms and Portuguese arms were similar enough in design that we can treat them as a unit. And everything we want to say about Spanish and Portuguese armory can be summed up in the observation that they used a broader bottomed shield than was used in the development of English and French heraldry. The Spanish invented quartering, and they invented it early. You tried to do that on a kite shield, the bottom two would curtain, it's not going to work, right? They invented quartering, and all of their design was based on the assumption that they would have more room at the bottom to play with charges. So for instance, 2 charges were almost invariably going to be in pale. Almost invariably, very few exceptions to that. There is no default in the English system for 2 charges. You have to specify it. In Iberian heraldry, they're going to be in pale. 3 charges will be 2 and 1. All right? I haven't found a default for 4 charges, but 5 charges in English heraldry are 2, 2, and 1 by default. In Iberian heraldry, they're 2, 1, and 2. They're almost always going to be in saltier.
Very, very common number.
Yeah, very, very. 5 is a very, very common. But again, you've got more room down there to have the charges in place. All right. So 5 and 6 charges. 6 charges in English heraldry are 3, 2, and 1 to fit the basically triangular shield. 6 charges in Iberian heraldry are going to be 2, 2, and 2 by default. All right. Again, that one fact, make your charges 2, 2, and 2, gives it a Spanish flavor, kind of like hot sauce, but chili pepper or something like that. But that one thing right there is, I won't say it's uniquely Spanish because this is heraldry and there are very few rules in that regard, but it's a characteristic, right?
Spanish.
If you have yeah, exactly so. Let's see. The wider bottom shield also allowed for odd field divisions that we don't see elsewhere, like Czechia 15. That is considered a field division, and sometimes you'll see it with some of them filled with ver. Czechia 15 ver and or is an example. Not sure what we do with that in terms of conflict, whether we count that different from ordinary checking, because it's never come up. All right.
It's a call for loot.
So I don't know. As for charges that are unique to Spanish armory, we have what we call the bend on Gould, or the swallowed bend. It's a bend which might or might not be voided, but it's got 2 heads on either end eating it. They were usually serpents' heads, or so-called, although they're really drawn like dragons' heads. They have, but they're called serpents' heads. Sometimes we have examples of lions. I see no reason you couldn't have, wolves. But this is almost uniquely Iberian. The examples of it we see in Italian heraldry are imports.
Oh, I was about to ask that because I thought I had seen that in Italian stuff.
Yeah, but
You have
there's
seen
a
it in
little bit
Italian,
of overlap.
but
Overlap.
Borgia, something. Words, full
Sicily.
phrases are more common in Spanish heraldry than they are elsewhere. You will find examples of letters in other countries. You will find examples of single words in other countries. Very rarely will you find full phrases. And the most common by far was Ave Maria Gratia Plena, the opening words of the Hail Mary.
I like how it's cut off.
Yeah, well, I couldn't quite plain, and you can't go back and fill it in again. So, they used as much as would fit. You'll also see this sometimes on a bordure around the edge. So so you have your main charge here, and you have a border on the edge filled with the phrasing of the Hail Mary. The Caldera Gringalada, you gotta love it. All right. Yes, it's a bucket of worms. Yes. And it's a variant form of an ordinary cauldron, except that where the little wire bales come out, they started decorating them, and then they started stretching them and decorating them, and then they started added to them, and eventually we got this. So the Caldera Gringalada.
6 level.
One that I don't have an example of in here is the bordure denticulata, which is like an embattled bordure, except part of the bordure it isn't shown on the shield, just the little teeth, denticulata, just the teeth are coming in. So you did a whole bunch of squares issuing from the edge of the shield. That is a peculiarly Iberian design. All right. So they used all the tinctures that I'm aware of. I don't think they cut short shrift on any of them.
Probably used for pure more than other people.
Probably, yeah.
It just doesn't say much.
Well, but there are two. All right, so
Question.
ask me.
You've got listed here the coin and the lunel
Ah.
as peculiar to Iberian heraldry.
I'm sorry, and I don't have pictures of those, but let me tell you what
You do.
they are.
The lunel is,
Oh, I do have, I included it in the handout. So I did. So the lunel is essentially usually 4 crescents conjoined, horns inward.
That's how we,
have a
that's
cou-
how we blazon it.
we wouldn't blazon it as a lunel. We blazon it as 4 crescents in cross or in saltire, conjoined at the horns or whatever.
It looks kind of like a quatrefoil voided.
Yeah, but we also find examples of 3 crescents in
Yes.
Spanish.
That's why they don't call it a lunel, because it's variable number.
Because
of
we'd have to specify the number and we'd grant difference for that. So.
And the coin,
The coin is a cornerstone. The coin is that's literally what it means. It's oh look, a whiteboard. It's a keystone inverted. All right.
Silly newbie question.
Huh?
The motif of the 4 crescents,
Yes.
there are 5 sets of them.
Yes.
How would you blazon that?
In English.
we'd let Reef
Five
blazon it.
5 sets of 4 crescents, each conjoined at their horns.
In saltire.
Well,
5 sets
in
in
cross.
saltire of.
Yeah, 5 sets of 4 crescents in cross conjoined at their horns.
That might be a way to get them to start using the term lunel as a
It might.
blazon term.
Well, there is no reason that we could not define lunel to mean 4 crescents, no more, no less. All
Or
right,
even say lunel 4, lunel
Yeah,
3.
we could do it that way too. And if any of us were in charge, we could do that.
None of us are in charge of
None of
that.
us are in charge. None of us will ever be in
No.
charge again. We've given up being
Some of
in
us
charge.
never want to be in charge.
Don't hold
Some
your
of us
breath.
never.
All right, let's move on to our next place, Italy.
Yes.
What happened to Germany?
I'm coming to it.
He's actually going with
I realize that my flow of consciousness is not something that mere mortals can follow, but please do your best. Come on.
handout in a
outside in.
different order.
I did, in fact, put my hand out in a different order. Mea max no culpa. All right?
That's why it matters more than a different order.
Follow along, people. The slides. Okay, Italy. There is no such thing as Italian heraldry, because there was no such place as Italy. It's a whole bunch of, spatting city-states, but there was no herald. There was no Italy. So with that in mind, they did have a lot of things that were frequently found here, and one of them were what are called chiefs of allegiance. I don't know how useful this will be in the SCA, but this was a very common practice in period. Depending on whether you were a Welf or a Webeling, or Welf or a Gibeling, depending on whether you're German or Italian, you could take your base coat of arms and add the chief to it that said either you were allied with Anjou, which I guess made you a Gibeline. Oh, wrong one. Or a chief of the empire, which would make you a Welf. Right? So you were choosing sides and you were displaying it on your arms, and you might take them off your arms if the politics turned bad. It was not necessarily permanent, although frequently the children continued to use it, not realizing the implications of what they were saying. But you do find examples of the same arms both with and without the chiefs. It was just assumed. They did. Remember, Italy had nothing even comparable to the English College of Arms. All right. So very often people would change their arms on a whim. Kind of defeats the purpose in my humble estimation, but never mind that. All right. Them Italians, they like them some stripy fields.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, you'll find these all over the wahoo. Stripes of 2 tinctures, Paley, Bendy, Bari,
Chevronelli.
Chevronelli sometimes, but yeah, you'll even find charges being arranged as though they were stripes on the field. Yeah. For those of you with good eyesight, you will see that the arms of Pharaoh are 3 bundles of sticks. All right. Pharaoh Mosca has got moosh, moosh, the flies, and the other 2, Faustin, I guess, just have cauldrons. But striped fields, very, very, very common. Divided fields with stripes on the half of them, also very common. As terms of charges that got used, one of the ones that, as far as I can tell, is peculiarly Italian is the mount couped. We find mounts all over the place, and tri-mounts, all right? But nowhere else have I found mounts couped and used just like any other charge. A bend between two tri-mounts couped, or in this case, mount of 6 hillocks couped, all right? They would be used just like mullets or lions or any other charge that you could arrange all over the place. And that's something that we might be able to use to our advantage in the society. Beards. From the canting arms of Barbani, we've got several examples of Italian coats of arms, all with a name that sounded like Barba or something on them. They all have this funky charge, which is a beard. All right? We see a few examples of that. I think we just saw one submitted at least, which was a beard black and white striped, which was obviously a personal statement. But, all right. But then you've got to remember one important fact about Italian heraldry. The Italians invented the impresa. And it shows in their armory. Yeah, you all know what an impresa is? All right. An impresa is something that's not heraldry. An impresa was essentially something that a man would assume for the day or for the occasion, and would be sometimes a tremendously complicated pictorial depiction of some motto or some sentiment. Like it would be a hand issuing from a cloud, rubbing the arms of the King of France on a touchstone. Yeah, symbolic much? Yeah. Things like that, and they could be enormously complex, and usually they have some meaning which we can't even divine anymore because we don't know the maxims and the sayings and everything that
So-
were in use at the time.
So you're saying a lot of them are probably allegorical?
They're almost certainly allegorical. They're allegorical. They have morals. The practice slipped over into France, where they are called devises, and they slipped then into England, where Mary, Queen of Scots, used them all over the place to say how much better she was than Elizabeth, and got killed for it. So, yeah, when your impresa is of a little songbird in a cage with a mean old falcon trying to kill you,
Not too subtle.
not so at all. But the Italians are the ones who invented that, and unfortunately, it kind of slopped over into their heraldry too.
Ouch.
Just a few examples of the more impresa-like coats of arms.
Dude.
Yeah, with that one we'd return for landscape in a hot little minute, but you know.
I did.
And that's my favorite.
Purple. It's purple.
It is.
Actually, it's black. It's just the projector.
Oh.
Sorry. Nice try though.
I was so hopeful.
Next time. All
Yeah.
right.
Make somebody
purple is
happy.
So
I don't think I have either. That's why I was surprised.
this is what we see in Italian. It was more playful. It had a lot more colors. All right. They didn't mind breaking the rule of tincture because no one could told them they couldn't.
There were red roses on blue all
Over the
place.
frickin' place. That's
So
right.
was there any kind of authority even in cities? I assume there was nothing.
And as far as I know, nothing. I haven't been able to find it.
I think you got a
Maybe
little
the
bit
pa-
of the papal
maybe the
authority.
papal, yeah, the papal states might have exercised some authority over their cardinals, but that's as close as we're going
With
to
the,
get.
with the ecclesiastical arms.
All right. But also in Italian heraldry, because this was like the Renaissance, in late period Italian heraldry, we are starting to see a growth of classical Greek charges from Greek mythology. Things like the cornucopia and the caduceus were found in period Italian arms. All right, so anything that started out as Greek myth and then kind of was coming back, you'll probably find in Italian heraldry at some point. So those are the things that you can do with that.
I have one question. The shield shape.
Yes.
I've only seen that in Italian. Have you?
I have not seen this teardrop shape. No, I've seen it in German. Some of the German rolls have the same shape. All right. More often you'll see the horse head shaped shield. Not in any of these rolls, but in others you'll see the horse head shaped shield, like a chamfron.
Yeah.
All right. But all right, now let's move on. Let's go back. to, all right, let's not. We'll keep going then. Fine, never mind. I take it back. We're going to come in, now we're talking now about what is in your notes as English style, but in point of fact, this is much more like the core style of the SCA. It's what the SCA core style is based on. And it encompassed not just England, but also France, because, you know, the English were originally French. But also the Low Countries, and Scotland, and because we forced them to, Wales and Ireland. And really there's not much you can say that differentiates them much. This is the Fenwick roll, and from 1400s, and we do see a lot of things in common. We see 3 charges, 2 and 1. 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 We'll see an ordinary between things, ordinary between things, and ordinary between things. You know, those are the most common motifs that we see.
I'm surprised to see 2 red on blue there.
Yeah. Yeah, this one here. They were better about the rule of contrast, but you know, even here it was not iron.
When they broke it, it was almost entirely red and blue.
Yeah. Not red and black. Red and
Yeah,
blue.
red and blue was almost entirely heavy broken.
Or orange arches. But anyway, continuing.
Yeah.
This is a French roll, the Breton roll from the same time period, and it follows. Oh, look, 3 charges, 2 and 1. Oh, look, it charged ordinary. Oh, it's just like, you know, 3 charges, 2 and 1. Papillony field, yes. A charge within an oral of charges, you know, semi, you know, it's very classic. And if we wanted to look at Scotland, the same time period from the Scots roll, we see the same pattern over and over again. This is standard core style for the SCAs.
Something to do with perhaps it does this because they were English.
Well, it has something to do with the fact that when we started the SCA, the College of Arms, all the books we had were English heraldry
But I was
books.
saying, like, Scotland looks like England.
Scotland actually was not trying to imitate England at that point in time.
No, I think the nobility came from some of the same.
Some of it,
groups.
yeah.
No,
Some of it,
it's mostly Lowlands.
Yeah,
stuff.
mostly lowlands, yeah. But you won't find a single thistle. Not one.
You'll see those full floor things.
Anyway. But they did have some things that distinguished them in addition to the layout of the style. For example, they did have some charges that were unique to English style. There was the estoile, to be a star, right? The rest of Europe used a straight rayed mullet to represent a star. And in fact, they call it a star. They call it a stella. They call it, the word for star in whatever local language was what meant a mullet. Only in England was the one with the 6 wavy rays considered the star and called an estoile, or sometimes it was just called a star. All right? So, other charges that are peculiar to this style include the water bouget. You're not going to find that in Germany, believe it or not. The water bouget, the clarion, the gurges.
Launch?
Manche is very French. Well, as you can tell from the name, La Manche is kind of French.
Mortimer, but it's different.
And let's see, I'm going forward faster. Piles in point. I won't go so far as to say they're uniquely English, but other places had single piles, but piles in point seem to be pretty much an English practice. You'll find saltiers other places besides Scotland, and ships in other places besides Scotland, but they were really heavy in saltiers and ships. Right? And for the French, the Créquier and the Cross of Toulouse were uniquely French charges. All right. Of course, it didn't stay good. Let's go back up again.
Easily.
There we are. Tudor heraldry. He said. All right.
It's its own regional
It's
style.
its own regional style, and thanks to one man, you have one man to thank for this, Sir Thomas Wriothesley, Garter King of Arms from 1505 to 1534, who went out of his way to register arms for all those nouveau riche people that did not look like the old arms of the established landowners. He deliberately went out of his way to make sure that no one was going to confuse this parvenu with somebody who'd had arms for generations.
He succeeded.
And he succeeded admirably.
Did he?
Boy, howdy, did he succeed. In many cases, the canting is in the crest. In many cases, we have a charged ordinary between 3 charges and then a charged chief with 2 different kinds of charges. It was just, let's see if I can find some examples. And
Complexity counts of 13 or 14.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
two
not
things.
that often though.
I mean, not that, no,
Nine or
not
10.
often. I mean, sometimes they were like, 2 charges on a board. This would be TSCA right there.
Oh, God,
I mean,
yes.
But some of these
Like
things,
that the other
some of
day.
these, like the arms of Dudmore, which has a ermine field, a chevron waving between 3 Moors heads, and they're vested fretty. All right, and then on a Checky chief, a crescent between 2 roundels, each charged with a dog.
Ordinary charges.
All right.
That is.
Quaternary charges. We would not allow. And then the chief went on to be just as bat ugly as the other. All right, but it's all right. This is typical. A charged chevron between 3 secondary charges, and then a chief charged with different types of tertiary charge.
1 between 2.
Yes.
So, and this would be a simple one. This would be like one that there's only one kind of charge on the chevron. There's only one kind of charge around the chevron.
And there's only 4 tinctures.
Yeah,
And there's no charge roundels.
yeah. So, but that's a regional style, ladies and gentlemen, and we have had IAPs which have documented it. I mean, we can document it. We can thank Juliana for that too.
It took a while actually to find lots of.
Oh, here's another one. Yeah.
Oh, that's simple for Tudor.
Well, I suppose, but you've got the per pale and then a bend on it, so that's not usual. And we have this one, which is like, look, if you're gonna have a long, skinny charge, put it along the line of the ordinary. Don't make the ordinary wider just to fit your charge. Those are pens, by the way. Those are what pens look like.
Are those Jocelyn's or are those wreaths of something?
Those are wreaths of something. Those are chaplets.
With a
chaplets of
charge
roses.
inside.
With a charge inside them. Yeah, those are chaplets of roses.
Floors?
Fleur-de-lis within chaplets of roses, chevron between 3, charged with 3 S-walls of 8, and then on a chief, 3 pens fest-wise.
Well, not pale-wise.
Pale-wise.
Pale-wise, rather, yes. I'm sorry. My bad.
It would look better if it even.
It would be much better for fest-wise, but no such luck. And then
It's still
I've
free
mentioned
from-
the piles in
point.
point. That's a very English thing. If they want English, this is a good way to do it. Another good way to do it is the use of party of 6. Party of 6 is, it's not, again, I can't swear that it's peculiarly English, but it got used there a lot more often than any place else. And particularly if you would like to have, if they want 2 kinds of charge, rather than have per bend an A and a B, which everyone has seen forever, party of 6. And put the charges that way.
I've usually run into problems that they only want 1 of each.
Yeah, well, that can be helped. But this is a very
Then you
English
go
design.
tiny.
This is like very English. If they want to be very English, this will do the job. Or of course they could have no charges on their party of 6 at all, but that's been done.
Yep. It even got a precedent saying it's different than Czechie.
Very good. Woohoo. Now we'll come to Germany. All right, so go back in your pages, go back to Germany. I'm very sorry about that. I didn't mean to confuse you. All right. When we say Germanic armory, we are including Switzerland, we're including Denmark, and to a certain degree Scandinavia, and some places further east. All right, because
Certainly
it was
Austria.
all because certainly the influence was the same. All right, and while I won't go so far as to say that they had charges that were peculiar to them, although they did, they had the Seeblatt and the Nesselblatt and a few other things. What I will say is that German heraldry went out of its way to take charges that everyone else had and do weird stuff with them. I don't know how else to phrase that. All right. They did, like for example, they had rather complex fields with the charge issuant out of it. They had a lot of field only. They had a lot of field only devices in German heraldry, and when they did a weird, in fact, most of our knowledge of what weird field divisions they had are taken from here, but you please note that they didn't use charges when they used weird field divisions. All right? So, yes, yes. All right. We've only got one example of that in the SCA.
That's nice.
Does that help?
So how did we blazon
Is
that?
that different from
Because the Germans
lozenges?
blazon things like they basically blazon things straight.
Yeah, well, we have several ways of blazing this. Modern French heralds would blazon this triangular. We probably, I've seen it blazoned both as lozenge couped fesswise
Oh.
or bendy, bari, bendy sinister.
That would have been a lovely way to get around that Zelda device that's floating around for ages and ages.
The Zelda triangles are past already.
So anyway, so that one's uniquely German as far as I can tell. This is uniquely German as far as I can tell.
Schneckenreipass.
Yeah, Schneckenreipass.
Which
Yeah.
is, we chose to blaze in the.
As per Paul and yeah.
And rounding.
Arondi, okay. But as I say, yes, they took ordinary charges and did weird things with them. They took the eagle and made it fesswise. You know, it's not flying fesswise. They just took an eagle displayed and turned it fesswise. You know,
Three fish.
the
Tricorporate
tricorporate fish. You know, radial symmetry was a big part of a lot of German designs. Threefold radial symmetry is something that you won't see in many other places. Well, a lot of other places will have three charges, 2 on 1. But Germany seemed to delight in making them radially symmetric. Right? Bending our antler in a circle. Yes, I realize that, you know, the one we are used to hasn't been in a complete circle and then joined and everything, but this is the way we see it later on. Same charge. You know, take that, Rolling Thunder.
If they would register that, they could spin it, they could have it.
Well, yeah. Germany, as I say, had a lot of charges that were peculiar to them. Sometimes they shared the same name as the same charge in England. So, for example, that's a panther in the German style, as opposed to the panther in the English style, which is kind of more like a lion. About the only thing they have in common is the name and the fact that they're spitting fire. All right, but this we would place in the SCA as a German panther or a continental panther. The arms of Styria.
And we now grant a difference between them.
That's a good thing.
Because they're the only thing that's related to them is the name.
Here we have the gymnast sea lion, standing on one foot with his tail over his head.
Have we ever blazoned that posture?
We have never seen this posture. No one submitted it yet.
That's a
Wink,
crying
wink,
shame.
wink, nudge, nudge. We also have a lot of examples of human figures in German heraldry. Now, again, this one I will say we find human figures all over. All right, every form of heraldry had them, but German heraldry had a lot of them. They had a lot of human figures, and sometimes they weren't nice to them. You will frequently find human figures in Germany with no arms, or demi figures with no arms, as we
Find
have
demi
here.
everythings.
You know, essentially just the torso. All right, I dare say it was easier to draw, but you will find a lot of human figures in. Okay, fine. Female Moors were always blonde. Well, not always, but frequently blonde. I mean, think Malibu Barbie. Okay, I don't know why, but again, no arms, and the guys were no better off. So it's like, you know, it's not like it's a sexist thing or anything going on here. And occasionally you'll even see things like this. We've got them coming out of weird stuff. And one thing that I did not mention here were the weird field divisions, which look like charges. You know, field divisions where.
They're here.
Where essentially you have a thing and then a thing like that, you know, usually leaves. Can you see that? The magic marker is almost out of
Try a
magic.
different color.
All right. This actually, let's look this. Pretend these are leaves. All right. So essentially, they're leaves issuant from the line of division, and in fact, forming the line of division. This was considered a complex field with no charges. We would consider charges issuant from the line of division, and then we treat it that way in terms of county
How
complex.
about that?
But this is a good
Is the bear a unique example, or is that something that we could actually try to?
Oh, the one with the two mouths there? No, that's not a unique example. There's a couple of others. All right.
It's a bear or a panther? I think it's a bear.
I think it's a bear. All right.
It's 2 dogs touching.
And then last but not least, we're going to end our tour of Europe back in the east again, in Hungary.
Oh.
I was thinking you were gonna leave Hungary just for last, right?
All right, saving Hungary for last. These are the arms of Hungary in the Armorial de Guerra, like 1370. And again, unlike Poland, you know, they actually use like real charges. But of course, Poland was part of Hungary in those days. And this is the standard arms of Poland that we have come to know and love. Hungary rather. Hungary ancient, quartered with Anjou, and then I don't know who that is.
And are those supposed to be sable or are those supposed to be argent?
This is supposed to be these and this,
Yeah.
argent, yeah.
Okay.
That's supposed to be silver leaf. All right.
Black on blue, like, it's fairly common,
Yeah.
is documented.
Here's a black and white version of the same page from the Armorial de Guerra, somewhat larger, and you can see that at this early time period, it was Germanic, what we would call the Germanic style. All right, we had lots of eagles, we had mullets, we had field divisions. It would have been indistinguishable from anything else from the German point of view of that time. But long around the early part of the 16th century, Hungarian armory changed radically. I think it had something to do with something, the Turks, something. Coming over. And in fact, what we find is that the armory changed dramatically in that it included a lot of severed Turks parts. It's been estimated that 1 in 6 of the arms in period Hungarian armory had a bloody Turk's head or Turk's torso with the arm, blood all over the place. It was just, as a memento of the strike that was going on there. Well, they almost all became blue fields with green tri-mounts. That became the norm rather than the exception. Blue fields with green tri-mounts. You'll occasionally find red fields with green tri-mounts. They almost all had tri-mounts, and the tri-mounts almost always ignored the rule of contrast. And then you would have a primary charge standing on the tri-mount. You might have 2 secondary charges in chief around it, but that was not as often done. In this case, issuant from the tri-mount, but yeah, and obviously the artist got a little bit exuberant. It was too big to be contained in the shield, so he but yeah, there's our severed Turk's head. There's our severed Sultan's head this time. And this one's even better because it's got God's arm coming out of a cloud and smiting the guy, so it's good.
And little Pooty holding it up.
And little Pooty holding it up, because God. But also we would have, quote, ordinary charges. A sheath, a garb, in this case issuing from a crown that's sitting on the tri-mount. And in this case, it is between 2 secondary charges, but that was more the exception than the rule, but it's not that much of an exception.
Do these achievements then also have compartments? Or is this tri-mount sort of like we would see a compartment in an English achievement
No,
arms?
the tri-mount in this case is actually a charge in the
It
arms.
is
I
in
didn't
the
include them,
arms
but
itself.
there is a complete achievement here, the helm coming up here and the mantling coming around, right? This is part of the arms.
I'm just wondering if it developed perhaps from the compartment in the full achievement.
I don't think so. It was
No,
it was
okay.
too sudden and too complete a
Universal.
change. Yeah. Something like that. In this case, it's just a single mount, not a tri-mount, but the effects are the same. All these are standard Hungarian arms of the period. All of these are period Hungarian arms, and I'm trying to find period images of period Hungarian arms was a challenge for me, so you should appreciate this. So, last but not least, let's talk about people who didn't have heraldry. Because you will have clients who come from a culture that didn't have heraldry. You will have Vikings. You will have Romano-Celts. You will have Russians. Russians didn't have heraldry. I mean, sorry. If a Russian in period had heraldry, he probably got it from Poland. Or maybe Hungary. The Russians wish they could be Poland in that period. But it's true. But, and while we can't point to anything uniquely design-worthy for those, because they didn't have armorial practices, there are some things that have become so ubiquitous that they have come to represent these things, and these are the things that you should avoid.
Please?
Yes. No more Valknuts, please. All right.
Valknuts
No
are
more
taken out.
Valknuts, no more wolves, ululant, ravens, Valknuts, drinking horns, fretted in triangle.
Ships.
Ships are all right. I don't mind ships, but they had a lot of other things in their symbolism that that you could use instead, that you could suggest to your clients
I
instead.
like a pair of drinking horns though.
The
Not
pair
for
of
Vi-
pair
not
of
for-
drinking
not for
horns, you know.
Vikings.
All we can hair cones, fire steels, anything else that might have been an artifact in the Viking culture makes a perfectly good reference to for a Viking persona.
The Viking
It's
answer
like-
lady has an awesome list of
she
them.
really does. And as for the Romans, again, anything we see a lot of eagles, we see a lot of Roman swords, we see a lot of thunderbolts. We can probably get away from just about anything that was, again, part of Greek mythology, like a Medusa's head, would make a perfectly good thing for a Roman persona who wanted to have arms in the SCA. It's just a question of expanding our horizons just a little bit.
The heralds will
So
come
anyway,
to me.
there we are. Any questions? That concludes my slide presentation. Almost. Almost concludes my slide
More
presentation.
mounts.
Okay, we're done.
I have to say, one thing I've done sometimes for Viking, though not entirely successfully, is say, why don't you try to do Scandinavian ones?
Sadly, I couldn't lay my hands on Scandinavian sources for this. I realized that the Scandinavian armory is a little bit different from the Germanic, but I couldn't get any period examples.
Yeah, I think I've only seen more modern.
I've seen redrawings of them in Ranike, but I don't own a copy of that. And
Nevertheless, in terms of discussing a style, it's like,
Yeah.
if you're Viking, well, you can tell us a little bit.
except it's so many leaves, they hate leaves.
Except for the fact that Scandinavia has some charges that we
Right.
won't register.
Like what?
Certain body parts.
Okay. Well, so does Italian. I wasn't even going there.
So does Italian.
All right. Any questions on anything? Anything you want to bring up? Anything?
So one charge I saw in the Portuguese roll that I don't think I've seen anywhere are rocks.
Thank you. In the Portuguese role?
Yes, they're rocks.
Rocks, yes. Actually, they're in Gwilym.
What?
They're in Gwilym.
Okay.
He calls them flintstones.
What's the for?
It's basically a little curve.
It's a rock.
It looks like a roundel.
Did I see a hand up there?
Yeah,
Okay.
my question was,
Yeah.
and you sort of carrying over from last class,
Okay.
if you want to associate yourself with one of the Polish clans
Yes.
that already has a prescribed Polish coat of arms, you cannot actually register that through the SCA because you're registering something that already exists to somebody else, correct?
All right.
But you can.
We don't check for conflict against the vast majority of mundane armory, so we wouldn't know whether or not you were using somebody else. The
Unless
arms
it's one of the
the
ones that's
clan.
like got a poisson d'or or something, maybe.
Yeah. But given how easy Poland is about the whole thing in the first place, I can't think that we would queep unless someone would have to bring it up.
Yeah. Now the other question I was asking though is, if I got the Polish name passed,
Mm.
and I know that that particular Polish name from that time period is associated with that clan marking, could I use that anyway at an SCA?
Now we're starting to
See, this is
I see your point. You're asking the wrong person. I'm not a sovereign of arms.
Yeah.
But
But you see where I'm coming from.
I
with
see
that.
where you're coming from, and we've actually done that sort of thing in the past. We had one submitter that I think of several years ago who had a surname and the arms that matched that surname, and so it was submitting this whole thing, and we essentially ruled, okay, we're not going to protect this. This is one of the things we don't protect.
That's what
We,
looks for the continuity.
that was one of the three crescents, yes. It was essentially, okay, it's a stunningly good name, it's a stunningly good device, and they happen to go together in period.
Okay.
But we don't protect them.
Good.
So,
Okay, because doesn't that mean that that person is saying that they were that person in period?
Kind of, but what we're saying is that we don't care.
Ah, okay.
I'm not saying that person, you're a member of that family, because of the way Polish arms work.
Yeah, because the one thing different is that you're not actually, in Poland, you would not be denying really other people.
No, really, in Poland, they're you know, if they were much looser about it. You could be like, you know, the fifth cousin of the first brother of the second wife of the person, and you know, you'd be fine.
Yeah,
Who
the only time you
cares?
guys are going to get worried is if I'm saying I'm Bob Hagersville, Duke of Warwick, and this is Bob Hagersville, Duke of Warwick's coat of arms, and I'm going to say that I'm going to be that person in period. Then it gets sticky.
Then you might do it in that case, yeah. But
Yeah.
just a family name and a family coat. As I say, we probably wouldn't worry about it simply because if for no other reason, we simply don't have the resources to check all Polish coats of arms.
No, that's understandable.
Yeah, if you were claiming to be an important Polish person,
Yes.
or you were using armory that was important enough that people would recognize it, like for
That went
example,
faster than I thought it would.
in German heraldry, we don't protect all of
I
the
was
cities.
expecting that to take like
in
at least an
Germany
hour and a
that have
half.
armory.
I went through it
But
pretty
one of
quickly.
them is used as a label on a very popular brand of beer.
Yes.
So that's protected.
Yeah.
If you chose Polish heraldry that happened to be used as a brand and everyone recognizes the brand, no. But
Yeah.
not because it's important heraldry in its own right, but because it's a trademark.
No, and that makes
That's
sense.
very interesting.
Oh, thank you. Well, it looks like we have some extra handouts if anyone wants one. Take it back.
I'll grab them.
So I have a question. What do you wish people would do in terms of researching more of this stuff?
I wish they would research more of this.
So
How would
we
you
don't
like-
have
how would you
a
like
bunch
to
of
present it?
involved, yeah.
Can we not ever get the air conditioning turned on in any of these different rooms?
No.
Air conditioning is on.
Well, if you want to sit here, you're there.
No, I don't want to deprive
There's a nice
her.
little fan right here.
I want to deprive her of her draft. All right. What would I like to see people? You mean like presenting it?
Yeah, like articles or whatever.
Articles would be certainly one way to go. Usually we see stuff like this being brought forward in the course of a submission.
Yes.
Right? I would really, really like it if people's submissions matched their documentation.
Well, that's different.
Yeah, well, but that's, you know, all right.
Well, I was thinking
yeah,
for example, Zenobia did something on Scotland where she did some kind of statistical analysis, and I believe Gwenllian did something on Zeemacher. Do you find any of that useful? Or?
I do. I find stuff like that useful. I tend to come to my own conclusions on things, but it's nice to see that somebody else has done it first and done it better. Usually they have. Yeah, a wider dissemination. I mean, I know that Zenobia, for instance, actually wrote articles for Coat of Arms magazine years back. I wish those were more widely available within society. I almost
I
wish
have
that
one
some-
article with me that is a photocopy of a draft.
Yeah, there are a lot of articles in past symposiums proceedings, which in some cases reinvented the wheel that had been invented by an article in a past symposium proceeding. We keep seeming to do that over and over. The work is lost. So a place where the best of our research is widely available would probably be an awesome thing to have, and then we could just point people to it. I realize that there are links on the SCA Heraldry website, and probably in other places as well.
Well, more recent proceedings tend to be online, but the earlier ones aren't.
Yeah.
They're available, but
There are
you
copyright issues with
Copyright issues.
well, there's copyright, and you know, some of them are available if you go and send money.
Yeah.
You get the entire proceeding.
Yes, sir. Tell me your name, by the way.
I'm Nathaniel.
Nathaniel. Hi, I'm Bruce.
Hey,
Okay,
Bruce.
go for it.
We've got a lot of Japanese people in our area.
Okay.
Like people doing Japanese personas. Is there a good spot to go to find out rules and regulations for the Mons and then try to get the Mons to work?
The rules and regulations for the Mons are exactly the same as the rules and regulations for all other heraldry in the SCA.
Okay.
In other words, we treat Japanese style designs as though somebody had taken one of those Portuguese boats from Japan back to Europe and was trying to register their family mon with a period king of arms.
Okay. Now,
So it has to be blazonable in period heraldic, European heraldic terms.
uh-huh.
All right. We're going to treat it as sable and argent, not omni tinctured.
Okay.
or whatever tincture you use.
Yeah.
or whatever tincture you use, but we almost always see them as sable and argent, and so that's. what we
Sometimes I see them
yeah.
as schools and argent.
Sometimes, but yeah. But the point is, you can't treat them as omni-tincture.
Okay,
And you can't have any charts that we can't blazon in
Yeah.
period.
so the same rules
Yeah.
with the Polish
Same-
stuff and
yeah,
stuff like that?
exactly
Okay.
so. it's like-
There's probably some discussion going on with that, and there's
About the
particularly-
tomoe.
Yeah.
about the
Yeah,
tomoe,
that's
and
what I was
also
about to ask
attested patterns in Japanese.
Yeah.
You can do an attested pattern.
Under IAP, so.
Yeah. Yeah, but even though it's an IAP, it's from outside the scope of the society. Even an IAP is still going to have an SFPP.
Now it's and of course
Sorry
there's
for
a
the
recent
acronyms.
source just came out. It was a Kickstarter project where someone did a whole bunch of flags.
I saw that.
I have a copy. Not
I need a copy.
It's a really cool book.
I need a copy.
It's a very
The
cool book.
College of Heralds and Code just
It will be
had a
appended.
Okay.
Okay, what he did is when he did, he gave one every kingdom.
Okay.
Who wanted one?
Yeah. Well,
And we said,
I'll pay for the damn thing. I'm perfectly happy to pay for it, but I just need to get off my duff and do it. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
because
Yes.
that was my question though, in terms of Japanese heraldry, right? Because there are definitely some design styles, the way that they configure their charges,
Right.
that are, like, I'm trying to wrap my brain, like, how would you blazon that, right? And so it's just,
And the answer is, if we can't, then we can't register it.
yeah, so basically then it's just sort of trying to take the design and then sort of,
Or coming up with a simplified design that still fits the European design motifs.
right.
No, we have the same problem with some of the Italian stuff too.
Well, there is that, but
Yeah.
but it keeps coming with the Japanese because it's an entirely different system.
It's entirely different system.
And there's a lot of Japanese people.
No,
For some reason.
for some reason. Anyone else? Anything?
But the fighters are
Well,
waiting.
sort of related to the discussion of stuff like the tomoe. We've got the names of some of the Polish emblems.
Yes.
And we say, okay, it's a, what was it, a rose?
Rokachina.
Rokachina.
Yeah.
And we call it a rokachina.
Right.
Why are we not just saying, calling it a tomoe because that's what it was called?
Mostly because tomoe is not, because tomoe, Japan is not in Europe. But the answer is, it may change. This is something that's currently under discussion.
Yeah. So the shortest possible answer is Japan is not Europe. And Poland is.
Well, technically neither is the Kingdom of Jerusalem, and we've got arms for that.
Well,
Yeah, but they're Europeans.
Europe.
They're European arms.
Yeah.
They're European arms.
It was a colony. Who else? Don't be shy.
But in any case, that's actually a discussion for Reed, not for Bruce.
Not that that's ever been a problem with heralds. But, okay. Thank you very much for attending my class. I greatly appreciate it. I hope to see some of these design ideas pop up in the future.
So she was doing all the research for here and said things.
It's strange how sometimes
Just like.